G'day guys, Rachel aka Crazy Bones here and welcome to my channel. Today we'll be talking about this guy. This is called Welcome Ship. So I've already pre-drawn this and I just added a few layers, fixing previously the drawing before. I've probably missed a few spots that you'd notice. Now I'm starting to add colour and it's a mess. I prefer it to be a mess. I learned that from Aaron Blaze. So I forgot to previously add a new layer. I'm just adding a new layer now so that therefore I can do the horns and the chest plate, realizing later coming up I didn't like the colour of the horns, so I changed it over to a different colour, as I do here now. So I'm changing over the colour so that I can do the teeth and the horns, realising the top horn, the main two horns, are wrong colour. I change it over and it looks better, and then I erase out the colour underneath in the channel below that one. So I remove that out. I create a new layer. I haven't labelled anything yet. I create a new layer and I colour in the spaceship basically. Realising I still have eraser on at some point, I'm like, oh, I should press the button B, change over, and then start colouring on the ship. So the ship's just grey, like the colour of steel. That's how I've put it. I then changed the colour again to like a more light grey, closer to white, for the lookout screen. I don't think that's the technical term for it, but that's what I'm going to call it. And then now I'm colouring in the welcome sign blue. Depending on where you live and which country you're in, it's usually either green, blue, or a very dark green. I don't know why they go with green, because green sits in with the natural colour of the environment. Should be a colour that sticks out like balls, basically, so that you can see it. So I went with blue. The signs in Australia and that are green, so I just went with blue, because blue you'd more likely see than green. But it doesn't take a genius to figure that out. So I am now colouring in the background, realising my brush size is too small. I enlarge it, putting the blue in, holding shift down and streaming across creates a single line. I do the same with the brown. It's a very dark brown. Yeah, very dark brown. In my head I'm thinking this is just like base colours for the time being. I'll fix everything up later on so that therefore everything will look better later on, and I'm not going to worry a whole lot about it right now. I fiddle around with the base of the area that's around the lookout view glass that's off the ship, and then I realize it's not what I want. I have to change it over. I eventually change the that into another layer and fix it up and stuff. I'll talk about that in a minute. So what I've done is I've just fixed up the background of the base color for the background. Now I'm working on the eyes, well, the socket of the eyes, which is jet black. I've lowered the opacity rate down on the layer, not the brush, so that therefore I can still see what's going on, and so that it doesn't affect the brush, so I don't overlay stuff from the brush on the layer, which is occasionally, you can do that anyway, but it's not what I want, so I've just lowered the opacity rate down on the brush. I'm starting to erase around the eyes, realizing I've made a mistake. I just have a bit of a tantrum and erase the whole thing and try again. I didn't like the way it was looking before, so I just, in my head, I'm just like, I don't like this, let's just erase it. It would just be easier, and then we'll try again. So I do the same thing again, and just colour in the nostril and the eye socket. There will be an eyeball there. I just erased the screen. I noticed there was fluff on it, and I just realised at that point that's the reason why you saw me erase the screen. I'm taking everything off because now I'm about to erase the excess colour that's extended out past the lines of the character. I'm zooming out to see what it looks like now. Looks good. But now it's time to erase my excess lines out. So I am taking down all the layers. Mind you, I've changed camera at this point. I just went straight to a camcorder because my camera only records for 30 minutes. And that's too short for me because these are very hour-long videos that I'm doing for you guys. I'm not I'm not abbreviating this so it's nothing for you guys. It's everything. So it's more so that you guys can see what exactly I'm doing and the processes I'm going through. So I'm just erasing out the excess of the creature. I do the same thing with all the bits that I have in here, except for the background. The background I have to do differently, which I'll explain when it gets to that point. But I'm just erasing out every excess color around certain objects so that it looks better. So then I can work on the shadow, the light, anything else I want to put in, I can just easily do now and have a look at where it sits. So this is just erasing the excess around the color, around the creature, sorry. It's basically about it. And that would be the rest. This is the rest entire video up until the point it's sort of erased. So in my head, I'm just erasing out all the excess color around the objects. The creature, the ship, the sign, the look view for the spaceship, the welcome sign itself, around the creature, and then that's all I do for a majority of this video is just erase out the excess color. So there's not much running through my mind at this point, just I've got to erase all this excess out, this excess color. I'm trying to stay at the line for when I erase stuff. I'll probably get asked in the comments below, why would you erase instead of coloring within the lines? It's easier to color outside of the lines and erase later than coloring in the lines, because you'd have to do the same process as what you'd do with an eraser. And if you got the lines, it's just like you have to click Control Z or to go back, or Control Alt Z to go further back, just so you don't go outside the line. It's the same process. I just do it with the eraser. It's just quicker and easier. For some people to do it one way or the other. It also depends on how you want to do your work. For me, it's just easier to color in something real quickly, do all the shading, do all the lighting, do everything so it's outside the lines so you don't really care that often, and then go in and fix it with the erase brush in Photoshop. So it's a shorter process for me. It might be a longer process for you. You've just got to remember, it depends on the individual. It's not a personal preference for me. It's just quicker for me to do it this way. You've got to find whatever way is quicker for you as an artist on Photoshop to do stuff like this. Which way is best for you? I mean, you might want to look up other people. I looked up Aaron Blaise because I like the way he did his characters for Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin and other characters for Disney movies and stuff. And I find he is a really good artist and that he's really good at explaining stuff. So I just went with what he was saying. He's like, worry about it later. Worry about it later. Like, when you colour in art and stuff, worry about erasing stuff later. This is just me erasing so I can see what the character looks like, where I can put the shadows and stuff. It'd be the same process that I do with the shadowing and lighting. I'd be outside the lines. It's not meant to be perfect. Perfect is the later process of, okay, I've added this in, I've got my colour, I've coloured everything in, I've shadowed everything. It's what's next for you guys. What would be next as you as the artist? What is your next process? So this is just me erasing my stuff. It's not perfect, and it never will be, but I enjoy perfect art, but I don't like doing it myself, so. And I'm a messy person with my art anyway, so for me it's just easier to make a mess of my artwork, clean it up later, and then fix it if it needs to be fixed in certain areas. So at some point in this video, you'll probably see me go back and forth between layers and erasing stuff and touching up on stuff. This is the point where I erase stuff, go through a whole bunch of other stuff as well through my processes that I go through. So this is just me going through, colouring in and erasing my work. The next part is just doing the shadow or shadows on a majority of my work. I put a sun representation in. That's not where the sun is actually sitting. It's out of frame and out of view. It's easy for me to do it that way, but this is just erasing my work so I can picturize of where I want the shadows and where I want some things to be. Do I need to add anything? So this is just me thinking through my head. I just have to erase this, have a look at it at the end process to see if I need to add anything. That's just about it. So this is just a majority of me. Didn't take me very long. It took me about 6 minutes to colour in the object. It takes me very much longer to erase it, but I'd prefer it that way. If I was to do the shadows, it'd be the same thing. It wouldn't take me long to do the shadows or the light. In some of my work, it'd probably take a little bit longer, but that's me. My brain takes things very complexly, so it's okay though, but I process things differently, much longer than other people, so it also depends on you, like whether you process things quickly, whether you're quick or whether you're slow. It doesn't matter, just as long as you do really good art. That's all I care about in people that are artists. It's like in entertainers, basically. Are you really good at entertaining people, making people laugh, making people giggle, joking things around? It's the same with a majority of the art. You're either really good at it or you're not. But you still can make improvements. There is no high expectations of things that can and cannot be. So it just depends on you. I go back and forth between layers in my work, erasing, going, oh, I've missed a spot. I'll go back and forth within my own work, going, this needs to be either changed over, or it needs to be fixed, or I think it's critique. Can't pronounce the word properly, so you'd have to excuse me. My English isn't perfect. I think it's criticize and critique my own work. So this is what I'm doing. I've made mistakes in this when I started erasing it. I've missed spots. I had to elaborate, fix, and that's just for the basic color of this. So I've had to fix and change stuff over. I've erased too far, so I've had to put color back in. But that's me. I'm not saying everything I do is perfect in this. It's not. It's far from it. But it also depends on you as the artist and where you stand. I can take criticism from other people, so I prefer to people to be honest with their criticism and not lie about it, but some people are very complex human beings, so I'm taking my own criticism as I'm reviewing this video right now. The audio will be placed in later. So I've erased stuff too far and I've just gone Control Z. What I could have done was gone, I could add the color in. It's always self-improvements that I can make. It's the reason why I'm going over this video, going, I could be better here. Instead of worrying about the fact that I'm going past the lines and clicking Control Z and going back, because I could leave it for the time being, come back down to it, and then just clicking B on my keyboard, and then coloring that small percentage that has been erased out, and just color it back in. But because I worry about it's not perfect, I go back and with Control Z or Control Alt Z, and I'm like, no, it has to be where the line is. Preferably you guys as artists shouldn't worry about that so much. I know a lot of us, when we're still learning, we do this. I did it and I was like, oh crap. And I get harped on about it all the time, and it's like, yeah, well, you have a point. So what I do is I'm criticizing myself now. It's like, you didn't have to do that, but I do it on occasions. Well, more than on one occasion. I've done it many times during my artwork, and it's like, let's not worry about it. It's not really a big deal. So I'm erasing the access out, and what I should do is when I erase past any line at any given point, I should be not worrying about it so much, but it's still something that I worry about because I'm like, it's not perfect. Why am I going past these lines? It's self-criticism that I'm giving myself, going, I shouldn't be worrying about this. I can always fix it later. And that's what I have to stick to as an artist, is not worry about what it looks like currently, what it looks like when it's finished. So I am a little bit, complex in the way I do my work. I can't teach people, but this is my criticism to myself, so I don't forget that things will never be perfect. I shouldn't worry about trying to make it perfect, erasing it, clicking Control Z and going back. Because life will throw you curveballs and you can never go back and fix some stuff. You can apologize and forgive people's mistakes, but what's been done has been done, and you can either sit in jealousy or you can forgive people. So this is just my self-criticism of myself doing my work. I'm not a perfect person, so for me it's just I'm erasing my work. So this is a jump cut. This is just me zoomed right into where the horns are, and I'm working on the horns. This video recorder that I'm working on isn't the perfect thing that I should be recording with, but it's just for the time being, for now, until I get my camera sorted out. Sorry guys, I yawned on you. so I can get my camera sorted out. So this is me just slowly working around the horns. The other side of the horns and stuff are already erased. So I took off the this is where I switched layers and stuff, and I've gone, oh look, I've still missed a spot with my creature with the red. I realized I've missed a spot, so I've just gone back and gone, I need to fix this. So I bounce between layers constantly, and it might annoy you guys, but it's when I spot something out of the irregular, it's like this small tiny detail that once you spot it, you can't unsee it. Think about it this way, is when you watch a movie and you see some terrible CGI in a film, and it's like, how is that a thing? How did that get past the producer? It looks how ugly, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's how my eyes are. Once I spot something, it's there forever, and it's like, why is this here? So I've obviously spotted something that you guys may not see, and it's just like a small bit of red or a small bit of color from anything else that's sticking out, and I'm like, why is this here? So I've just gone through and erased it off. So this is just me erasing my work, touching up just a little bit around the horns and stuff. A little tiny minute colour that my eyes will spot still out. So I jump between layers and I'm like, okay, I've spotted this. Let's make sure it's not any further. With colour extension, well, the excess colour being out really. So I've spotted it and I'm like, why is this here? I've missed a spot. And you don't notice it until later. I was more worried, just what I wanted to do originally was just erase around the character and a majority of the stuff, and then worry about if I've missed anything later on. But my brain's like, since we've spotted this, shouldn't we be fixing it? And so that's what I do, is that I go back through and I fix it. So you've noticed me erase one side of the spaceship. There's this, and I've noticed when I was doing it the whole entire time, there's this tiny sliver right near the refined drawing line of the spaceship that is sticking out, and it's like really, really small, and you can't see it on the screen, but it's so small. Once I spotted it, I went, oh crap. So what I'm going to be doing later on with this is grabbing a few images of random construction stuff, and then add it like a opaque layer or something. Not opaque layer, sorry, pardon me, my words aren't coming to me right now. Lower opacity rating with it, and then see what it looks like when I add stuff like proper steel and stuff onto the image. But that's for later on, once all the shadowing and light's done. So this is just me working through it, erasing my stuff, excess color outside of my lines. I get frustrated a little bit because I erase past where I wanted to, and I like, it's not what I want. So I got frustrated with myself because it's a small, minute thing that I was worrying about. I didn't understand why I was worrying about it, but occasionally it's just like, it bugs me. So me as an artist gets bugged out. So what you just seen previously was me holding the H key on the keyboard and then moving my mouse or moving my cursor over to another part of where I wanted to go to. I didn't think it would work, but it was actually quite interesting that it did. Because I've got a different kind of Wacom than the one I was originally using. I just usually scroll with my mouse because I don't trust myself in using those keys all the time. So I'm still figuring out Photoshop for myself. So there's some keys I need to learn. The H key, because I have a different Wacom. The H key is usually on the Wacom tablet's side, where you click a certain button, it would come up with Alt, or it'd come up with Control H. Well, I think it's just H really. Or it'll come up with this little hand. That's where you can move stuff around without using a mouse or without scrolling. So I'm gonna try and get myself used to using that button instead of using the mouse. So eventually I'll get used to using that button, so you guys will see it more being used. It's when it zooms itself out and then you just click elsewhere of where you want to be looking at. But I like to use the one that's actually on the Wacom. You click it down and then it moves. Not all Wacoms are the same, so it depends on the kind of Wacom or tablet you're using. For Photoshop, if you have a certain Wacom, clicking the H button on your keyboard will do the same thing. So I didn't realize. I'm like, oh, I wonder what happens if I click H, and then that came up. So occasionally you'll see me fiddling with keys. Well, not actually fiddling with keys, but seeing what certain keys do. Because I'm still fiddling out, or not fiddling out, but fiddling around with some of the keys in Photoshop. So as I'm erasing around the ship, you noticed I went too far when I erased down on the ship. So I click Control Z instead of going, oh, we'll leave it until later. We just have to erase around this ship. My brain does going, hey, it's not perfected. Well, it's not perfection, so we have to go back through. Click Control Z and go back. Now what I do here is I erase where the top part of the spaceship, where that ring goes around. I erase through there and I'm like, I'll worry about that later. That's the only time I go, I'll worry about it later, because I've got other things that I have to erase around too. So I'm erasing around the lookout glass of the spaceship glass. So it's just like the lookout view glass of the spaceship that I'm erasing around. So yeah, so that's basically what I'm doing, is just fixing around stuff. There are some things that I've got to really work on as an artist too. So one of them's not worrying so much about I've erased past the section that I was meant to, but it does occasionally happen in my head going, oh, it's not perfect, let's go back. As an artist who's constantly learning at every given point with artwork and stuff, it's like, take a deep breath in and go, we'll fix it later. I had to do that at some point. So this is where I'm going around. And I dropped the opacity rate for the layer down. And I'm like, wait, wrong layer. Clicked Control J to drop it into a new layer. Went back to my other layer and erased the access off of that off completely. So I can drop the opacity rate for this layer down. It wasn't working to the way I wanted it, so I was fiddling around with it, and then I'll bring up the background for it, the background layer, on to see how far I wanted the opacity layer. I was going between 80, dropped it down to 30, dropped it off completely, and then so this opacity rate for the layer is on 30, then I drop it up to 50, I drop it up to 60, and then I went up to 70, and then I went up to 80. 80 was as far as I wanted it, so it still had like, it came from outer space, and the glass for it doesn't belong to Earth. I had an error come up because I clicked on something and then the whole layer explanation crap came up, and I'm like, I don't care about this right now. So the opacity is too small, so I'm fiddling with the number rate that I want the opacity to sit out. So I zoom out so you guys can see what I'm doing. So it wasn't working to the opacity rate. I did knock my camera, just so you guys know. So the opacity rate wasn't the way I wanted it, so I was fiddling between digits on and off. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's too not what I want, not what I want, not what I want. And then 80 was the way I wanted it. So once I did that, I went into my another layer where the brown for the part sign was located to erase around the sign. So I'm erasing around the wooden part of the sign right now. That's the sign that says welcome. I did the same thing as what I did with the spaceship. There was this tiny, tiny, minute line, and I had to say to myself aloud, let's not worry about this right now. We'll worry about it later. Once we've cleaned up your work, we'll fix it later, and then we'll deal with it then. And it was just down one side. I don't think you guys can see here the tiny little line of where the brown isn't in the line. So that's when I go through and clean it up. There's a little bit of excess that's still sticking out, so I'm going through and fixing the areas that I missed. I still go outside the line with my colour, so I can erase it, but that's about it. So there's that tiny little line again. Now I go too far at this point. I'm just like, yeah, meh. I've cleaned down the bottom anyway. I completely forgot about that the time, and I'm like, as I was erasing it, I'm like, I've erased too far. We'll go back, and I'm like, why am I worrying about this again? So I start from the other side to see if it would work properly, because the way I was doing it before I didn't like, and it felt really weird holding the brush the way I was. Well, not the brush, but the Wacom tablet pen. So I've gone back out. Now I'm working on the sign from a slightly further away distance. That turned out pretty well. So I'm with the bite mark, I'm erasing in circles around the sign. Not always, but occasionally I'll erase in a circle motion rather than a straight line, because I'm trying to take away where the bite mark is, and I can't do it in a straight line. So it also depends on if I did the sign differently, I'd have to do certain motions with my hand and wrist so that it wasn't just a straight line. So straight lines are easier to erase in Photoshop, so you just hold down shift, get your certain brush size, hold shift, and then drag straight across the screen. Or the other version of tablets that you have, I had to pause. I think I sneezed, or yeah, no, I sneezed. right about here. Off screen I sneezed, and I was also looking for something else on the keyboard because I was sitting in the pitch black darkness. I couldn't see what key I was looking for, and not keyboard key, house key, because I knocked something on the table too. So you don't hear any of this what's happening on my table. So a few things happened off screen. So now I'm fiddling with the layers. I believe I'm fiddling with layers. Changing things over, having a look at other things. But also trying to find certain keys on my keyboard because I'm sitting in the dark. So you guys don't have to look at the reflection of the light that is happening off screen because I'm sitting in the pitch black. I'm looking for keyboard keys, clicking the wrong ones, and I'm like, no, that's not the key I want. Having to go back and looking down at my keyboard and away from my screen. Like, that's the wrong key, I don't want that key. So now it's just the eyes I have to erase around. I maximize the opacity to 100% on this, realizing I'm working with the color black. I can't see underneath the lines where the lines are, so I dropped the opacity down to about 80 so I can see where the lines are. Occasionally I do click Control-Z. I've got to bulk it into my own brain that we shouldn't worry about what, well, we as in me, but we as in you guys as well, don't also worry about, you've gone past the erase point of where your lines are. You can fix it later. It's not a huge issue that should be focused on all the time. I know a lot of people do it, and it's like, I've made a mistake, we'll go Control-Z. Worry about it later, to be honest. As from me to you, as young artists and stuff, don't worry about it so much. Or if you've got the experience, you already know this, don't really focus on what I'm saying. So it's just me talking about my own criticisms that I have with myself. So that's erasing it out. I zoom right out to have a look at it. I then look at it for a while and go, okay, where do I want the light to be? Because that's where, as soon as I put the sunlight in to a certain area, I go through this again. It's toggling things off on, see what opacity rate I wanted it. Do I want an eye? This is what I'm thinking. Don't I want an eye? Do I want it to look scary? Do I want it to look cute but evil? Things that run through my brain going, okay, what do I want it to look like? I fix a few things up with how I want things to look off screen that you guys can't see. I'm putting things to the creature together so that all the base color for the creature is all together. The color for the ship is all together, and the color for the welcome sign and stuff is all together. I'm also labeling things, putting things in groups. I'm currently going in right now and using my mouse. That would horrify some people. Yes, I'm using my mouse and not my Wacom pen that I should be using to then put in the dots and colour it in. I do that later with the last two, but the last 4 screws that are on here. I really couldn't be bothered doing it with the whole thing because I couldn't care less. So yeah, I'm just going in with my mouse with the top big 4 screws and just clicking once and putting the screws on. New layer again. Just tattling away, fixing it, goofing around. But yeah, no, this is just me going in, fixing it, adding in colour to the screws. Adding colour where I think it's going to be darker on the inside of the steel, and what colour the screws, bolts. They look like screws, so, but they're meant to be bolts. But I'm like, oh, we'll make them screws just for giggles. So that's what they look like. They look like screws. So we're actually meant to be bolts, but I'm like, oh, we'll make them look like a screw. Because, you know, it's more fun. So I go back in and fix stuff up. So that's about it. Because once you see it, it's like seeing CGI that looks terrible. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. It's the same thing with colouring in your work. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. You know it's there forever. No matter if they release the movie 10 years later with fix up and stuff, it's like, you know that was there. You know they made an error. Yeah, but stuff does happen. So this is me going in through with just the brush and using the Wacom tablet. See, it takes slightly longer, whereas if I was to use the mouse and go, oh, we'll go about yay size and smash it in, we'll be right. That's in my head, by the way, guys. So in some parts, what you don't see off screen is that I'm going through layers, changing things over. Yeah, I switched and then I noticed, wait, I've missed a spot, and then I go back and colour it in. So I noticed this little blue line. You guys can see it. I then fix it. I'm like, why is this here? Why is this here? Went over with certain colours, again in other colour areas, had to erase it out so that it was not there. Small things that I'm just touching up on, and everybody will probably be saying, why are you fixing this? It's only small minute things that I'm touching up on, things that I've noticed that I've missed, changing colour, adding colour, erasing colour. All the processes that are going through my brain right now is just, it needs to be fixed, it needs to be touched up on. I know it annoys many people, but so with this little bit here, I colour it in, I go out past my lines and stuff, and I'm like, ooh. And then I erase too far, and I'm like, I'll just colour this in. So, small tiny details that people forget that are also important. It's also not just the biggest details that you can see, it's the smallest details that you don't see, which is what your brain is thinking of. Going, what am I going to do next? What's my next plan? Okay, I've spotted and missed stuff. This needs to be fixed now rather than later. So that's all I'm doing, is fixing stuff now rather than later. Doing a quick touch up here and there, taking stuff away, refixing stuff, spotted stuff that I've missed, spotted stuff that the access colour is still past the line, touching up on that. It's just touch up at this point. And then what it will be the same process with the shadow and lighting, and that's about it. So I'm just going through, touching up on stuff, colouring in where I had to erase out certain stuff or did erase out certain stuff, and just touching up my work. And then zooming out, having a look at what it looks like, zooming back in because I've spotted areas to where I've missed or where I've erased too much excess colour, that it's past the point of where the lines should be. Going through, adding colour, updating my stuff and making it look better. So my brain's thinking, what's our next point? What am I, if I wanted to change the colour of that little ringlet ring around the spaceship at the top, what colour do I want it to? I want it to be gold. Do I want it to be shiny, or do we want it to look black? At this point, I passed the ship line and I giggled to myself and I'm like, you're an idiot. You went too far. With both the erasing point and the colouring point. That's about it. So now I'm having a look at it going, it looks pretty good right about now. What's next? Do I do the saliva that's drooling out of his mouth, or do I make it another color so it's poison? What you guys don't notice out of screen is that I'm labeling everything so that it's labeled, and I'm putting new layers in for shadow, for lighting. I'm naming everything off screen. But as I'm naming this stuff, I'm thinking, okay, where do I want the shadow? Where do I want the light to be? Okay, do I have to put a sunlight in? The answer to that is yes. I just click on yellow, go to the highest color of yellow, drop that in so it looks like my sun, and then I work around that. You also have to imagine, the way I do my work is, for you guys to understand, is that when I drop in sunlight, I will also have to imagine where the light's going to be and how much light do I want. Do I want it so it's like moonlight, where it's just enough sunlight and more enough darkness, or do I want enough light where it's seeping in and where there's more shadow than anything? So these are the things that I have to configure and work on. So the same thing is like, do I want this to be a certain color? Do I want this to be this? It's my brain going, hey, I'm still here. What are we going to do? We're going to figure out stuff. In this part, for you guys to understand the way I think things through, is that when I do shadowing and light, I add a sun, but I also have to use my imagination. It's like creating a character. You're tapping into that part of your brain which is imaginary to bring things to life, which can help you in the long run. Later on. So that's what you've got to figure out. It might not be perfect now. You can always fix it up, touch it up, do whatever you can later. But you just have to change a few things over. It's not going to be perfect, you know. It's not going to be this perfect masterpiece in your head at this given point. It's just, for me, I've got to figure out where I want stuff. So the saliva I was talking about earlier. Do I want it to be saliva? Do I want it to be venom? Do I want it to be something else? Do I want to, you know, make it something different? Do I want to change things up? Where is the shadows going to be? Where is the light going to be? If I do this, what would it look like? It's just stuff in my head I'm fiddling with. So at this point right now, what you're seeing is me writing up layers and stuff for shadows and light. And then I just group everything together in a group, which is Control G. I group things together in folders so that it's neat, tidy, and I know where everything is. It's like keeping your room clean, basically, to the point where you know where everything at every given point is, so that as soon as you move something, you know something's missing. So with this, I'm just touching up on stuff, fixing stuff up, labeling stuff. At this point, I'm just labeling stuff, putting them into layers, and then adding more layers, labeling those layers, for then everything's organized. So when I do the shadowing, when I do the lighting, when I do extra color and stuff, it's in a new layer. And if it's a part of something, whether or not it's a part of something, it's stuff I've got to figure out. For now, I'm just labeling stuff, putting things in groups, getting stuff organized for a later video or a later discussion for you guys, so you can see the process that I'm going through. So this, I should have done this before I started the video, was label things. At that given point, I just didn't care. I wanted to color and erase to see what it would look like. That's all I wanted. That's all I cared about. And that's all I wanted to do was color, erase, and touch things up. We'll label stuff later. So right now I'm labeling stuff off screen. You guys can't see. I've labeled a few things wrong. I've misspelt a few words, and I'm like, wait, hang on, that's not how we spell stuff. I've got to correct my own English. I've got to correct my own spelling, and I'm like, that's not the way I want it. That's not how we spell it. Even if I have to Google how to spell something, I'm still going to get the spelling of something correct for the projects I'm doing, because spelling and correct wording is industry worthy. So I'm labeling things that is designed for the film or game industry, going, I'm going to put all of this in groups, so at any given point somebody else can open up my work and realize she's labeled stuff and it's labeled correctly. So for example, I'm writing either lighting, shadow first, because that's a layer, or base color, base being all lowercase, color with a capital C for color, and then underscore whatever base color. So it would be base color dash lower c, or so it's lowercase first word, capital case second letter. Those two words are connected. So it's lowercase, we'll say light, uppercase ship, so ship would be uppercase, or and then dash, so shift dash, so underspace, creature dash 01 for shadow or light, because I do more than one shadow type. I go through like the types of shadow. There's 3 types of shadow. You've got the light soft shadow, you've got the medium shadow, which is more defined and more strong, and then you have the hard shadow. 3 types of shadow: soft, medium, heavy. We all have it, so it gives you that 3D object or 3D look to a 2D image. So it's like, hey, here's the shadow, here's the light, here's stuff that you can improve on, or here's how I've labeled things, and here's how I've done my work. I think about what it would be like in the industry. I'm not in the industry. I've got a advanced diploma and stuff for the film industry. I've done a bit of game stuff too, but that's neither here or there. So it's just, how would they label their work? And I've always kept the way they've labeled their work for the industry, so that people could open up that folder and see where things are and what layers where and what's in what group folder. So, and what I've done is, with the shadow, the light, and the base color, I put them into a folder, one big group folder called color. So you have base color as its own folder, I have shadow as its own folder, and I have light as its own folder. I have refined drawing, depending on what I have as a part of the image, in its own kind of folder. And the only thing that's not in a folder is base color, and that is it. So that's the way I work my stuff out. That's the way I do my stuff. So things are organized when I do my work. So this again has been Rachel, aka Crazy Bones. This is my YouTube channel. This is a new character that I'm working on with you guys. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace, respect, love. Later, guys.